Hello everyone, Dr. Suneel Dhand. Welcome to another video. I'd like to think those of you who follow me here do so because you want open, honest debate. You want to arrive at your own conclusions. You don't want things shoved in your face. You want to hear things that are not entirely being reported in our corrupted mainstream media. And above all else, you want to live in reality. So on that note, I want to share with you a story which was recently reported about a solution from our medical authorities to the soaring rates of heart disease that we're seeing across the Western world. Now, I have been making videos recently about the alarming excess deaths that we're seeing, and cardiovascular related deaths seem to have also gone up dramatically over the last couple of years. But this is a problem which has been going on for some time. I have my own theories as to the pandemic factors that have contributed to the rise in excess deaths and cardiac related deaths. But let me share with you this story. So this was in CNN Health, so not the best source. I must confess I rarely watch or read CNN. But this is what it says. Combination polypills can help solve world's heart problems, experts say, if more people can get them. An inexpensive polypill is probably one of the best ways to solve the world's heart problems, prominent cardiologists say. What is a polypill? Well, it's basically a pill that contains lots of different medications. So in this circumstance, they're talking about a combination of a medicine that can lower blood pressure, a statin that lowers cholesterol, a medication that can make the heart beat with less force, presumably that's a beta blocker, and sometimes aspirin. And they talk about it like a multivitamin for your heart. A multivitamin for your heart. What a novel concept that is, especially if we're talking about prescription medications. So they talk about heart disease being a global tragedy. It's the number one killer in the world. About 18 million people die from heart problems every year. Around 54 million people live with heart disease. In the US alone, nearly half of adults have some form of cardiovascular disease, and one person dies of it every 34 seconds, according to the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Those are terrible statistics for the United States, and anyone who thinks that it's normal for half of the population of any given country to have heart disease, please think again. That is not normal, and it's way off statistics for many other countries, including European countries. With risk factors such as obesity and diabetes on the rise, of course, that's the main reason why the United States has such bad statistics, because of lifestyle-related diseases. Heart problems will continue to grow. Of course they will, particularly in communities that are already disproportionately affected by health issues, like minority and rural communities. Scrolling down the article here to get to the main points, doctors point to a growing body of evidence that suggests that a polypill can prevent heart problems with few side effects. In recent independent long-term trials, there was clear and resounding evidence that this pill really worked for primary prevention. Primary prevention, that's a big deal. Meaning a person could take it even if they hadn't had a heart attack or stroke, and as secondary prevention after a heart attack. Primary and secondary prevention are two very different things. Primary prevention is when you take a medical therapeutic before getting an event. You may have underlying risk factors, but you actually haven't got the illness yet. Secondary prevention is when you take a medical therapeutic after having an event, like a heart attack, and then you are put on pills. So primary and secondary prevention, very important to distinguish between them. We'll come more to the study in a little bit, but they talk about the data for primary prevention and secondary prevention with polypills. Then there's some debate over who should get polypills, and the FDA is seeking approval. So as always, when we see any story like this, always look at the actual study itself. That's the correct scientific thing to do. Never go on a media headline, go to the actual study. Let's check it out. So here it is in the New England Journal of Medicine. Polypill strategy in secondary cardiovascular prevention. So they're talking about secondary cardiovascular prevention, and the study is published in the edition from September 15th, 2022. Here's the abstract here, and we'll get to the main point here. It is a randomized controlled clinical trial. A total of 2,500 patients underwent randomization and were followed for a median of 36 months, so 3 years. And then they talk about the primary outcome event, which occurred in 118 of 1,237 patients, 9.5% in the polypill group, and 156 of 1,229, which is 12.7% in the usual care group. So they found that to be a significant difference. And I've talked before, and I'll talk again, about the difference between relative risk reduction and absolute risk reduction. But of course, like every medical and scientific journal, they're focusing on relative risk reduction. Then a key secondary outcome event occurred in 101 patients in the polypill group and 144 patients in the usual care group. So magnify this, they would have to treat a lot of people to see a very significant difference. The results were consistent across pre-specified subgroups. Their conclusion was treatment with a polypill containing aspirin, ramipril, and atorvastatin. So ramipril is an ACE inhibitor medication. Treatment with those three medications in a polypill within 6 months after myocardial infarction resulted in a significantly lower risk of major adverse cardiovascular events than usual care. But as always, one thing you should always do is scroll to the bottom and look at the conflicts of interests and financial disclosures. I already knew that this was a big issue, but the last couple of years have really opened my eyes and red-pilled me more to the reality of the ways of the world in medicine and science. It's very sad, but one has to be wise. So let's go ahead and do this for this particular paper in the New England Journal. Here we have a statement at the bottom, supported by a grant from the European Union Research and Innovation Programme. And then they've got a particular institute here called CNIC. And look at this, CNIC receives royalties for the sales of the polypill from Ferrer International. That should come as no surprise at all. We must have our eyes open and our guard up to what medicine and science is really like. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't take pride in saying this, but we all know the saying. 90% plus scientists and doctors will agree with whoever is funding them. That is the truth, and that's the way the world works. So we must know this whenever we're hearing anything about a particular drug or product being promoted, or a story in the mainstream media which may even be sponsored by the drug company itself. That is the world we live in. Let's focus on these points then. My first point, I'd like to come back again to primary versus secondary prevention. If we're going to be recommending a pill potentially to millions of people for primary prevention, we better have damn good evidence that it works, because I'm sure the big pharma companies have dollar signs in their eyes because so many people have underlying cardiac risk factors. If we're now talking about pushing a pill in people who haven't even had an event happen yet, that could be millions and millions of people. So we want to see strong evidence, not tiny absolute risk reductions. Secondly, let's focus on the cost, because I'm sure this drug is not going to come cheap. Big pharma companies exist to make money, and they know that this could be a blockbuster drug if it worked according to their plans, i.e. gets rolled out to millions of people. Let's think about some medications like statins, for instance, which are in the polypill. Statins are one of the biggest blockbuster drugs of all time. The last statistics I saw were that from the early 1990s to the late 2010s, atorvastatin, Lipitor, made by Pfizer, raked in almost $100 billion. I repeat, $100 billion, which is more than the GDP of a small country. These are staggering sums of money. Thirdly, let's think about this. This is my area of interest as a physician who specializes in lifestyle medicine and metabolic health. We are again completely failing to really address the root causes. These rates of heart disease, which are off the charts in many countries, including the United States, are not normal. And they exist because we have the wrong lifestyles. These are lifestyle-related diseases. We could start with being all hands on deck if we were really public health authorities which wanted to care and focus on the true health and well-being of the population. We would be all hands on deck to discourage the consumption of ultra-processed foods which people are eating in record quantities, sugar which people are eating in record quantities, All of these things, along with being sedentary as well, are contributing to the disaster we are seeing. The answer is never going to be in a pill. The problem is going to keep getting worse and worse. More people will keep getting affected, and we are doing wrong by the people by focusing as the medical establishment on the answer being a medical therapeutic. It will not be for this particular question. As for the last couple of years, why heart disease and heart attack rates have gone up with unique pandemic related factors, that's a whole different question. But again, metabolic health plays into a lot of this, and going back pre-2020, this was already a problem. We cannot neglect the role of one's baseline metabolic health, which most of us have complete control over, improving ourselves through lifestyle measures. Finally, remember this: modern mainstream culture will always want to push pharmaceutical products. That is the culture we are in, especially in the United States. We think that this is the answer to everything, and it's for many reasons, not least because of the power of these big pharma companies, which are making hundreds of billions of dollars. It is estimated that 2/3 of Congress cashed a check from big pharma. We know that the numbers when it comes to lobbying power of big pharma are also off the charts unbelievable. So we have the deck stacked against us. If we truly want to seek health and well-being through the right ways, we are fighting a big force that doesn't want us to adopt natural lifestyle measures to improve the situation. And that's why we're seeing the problem get worse and worse. There are too many different players involved here that want us to be on as many pharmaceutical products as possible. It's a mistake. The problem is going to keep getting worse, and I do wish that the medical establishment would realize this and focus its energy and attention where it should. I'm not saying you should never have medical therapeutics. You can certainly have drugs. Of course, it's great we're living in 2022 as opposed to 1622, but this is a problem which is not going to be fixed with medical therapeutics. And again, the last couple of years, things have got even worse. And I'm sure pharmaceutical companies are going to think that, yes, now that we're seeing the rates increase, it's time to push more and more drugs. I do not believe that that's the answer. Thanks everyone for listening. Dr. Suneel Dhand. Do let me know your thoughts down below. Hit the subscribe button for more similar videos in the future. Also hit the bell button so you get notified when I make more videos. Remember 3 things. Modern mainstream culture will make you very sick very fast. Sadly, a lot of healthcare and medicine has become very corrupted indeed. And fewer things are to be more cherished than our freedom. Do also come follow me on my uncensored platform, locals.com. That link is down below, where we have more open, interesting, honest discussions away from this environment of big tech, censorship and silencing. Really sad I need to say that in the United States, but I do. We will talk again very soon.